Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, The Start of the Possible. Thank you very much to Y Sports for hosting the webinar. I'm delighted to be able to introduce some colleagues to you shortly, some experts who are going to assist in informing you on this fantastic initiative funded by the National Lottery and Sport England called ReTrain to Retain. Just to give you some context before I introduce you to the panelists, and forgive me that I'm looking down, I'm reading some statistics to you. One of the challenges that the pandemic has created is a massive exodus from the sector. Many self-employed people in particular, but also people in an employed status have left the sector because they simply couldn't afford to stay in it, or many people have had their hours reduced. And the experts that you're going to hear from today got together and felt very strongly and feel very passionate about the fact that retaining the brilliant talent of our professional workforce and volunteers is essential to the success of this sector. So the premise of this project and support package is to ensure that we do just that we don't lose great talent, great experience from the sector at a time when our sector has such an important role to play in terms of health and well-being, social cohesion notwithstanding. So just to give you an indication about the staff shortages, we ran some data back in June this year. And there was something like just shy of 21,000 vacancies in the sector, which is the highest number of vacancies we've seen for over 6 years. And we ran the poll again with our partners MC in July, and it had only dropped by about 400. So the second highest number of vacancies we've seen in our sector for quite some time, 5-6 years. Predominantly, these vacancies are in roles such as personal trainers, lifeguards, swimming teachers and coaches, but not limited to. There are also management vacancies too. But where the activity takes place and the frontline key personnel in PTs, fitness instructors, lifeguards and swimming teachers, that caused quite some alarm amongst the people on this panel today. So we very quickly worked with Sport England and the National Lottery to see if we could raise some money to support you guys in keeping you in the sector. And of course, if you're an employer, keeping some of that talent in the sector. Just from an employer perspective, actually, it may alarm you to hear that there was an estimated 86% of those employers that we surveyed were experiencing staff shortages. So this is, pretty catastrophic in a sector that's been shut predominantly throughout lockdown, then able to open its doors only to find that it can't provide all the services due to staff shortages. That's a bit of a gloomy picture, but I am delighted to say that with some real vision from our partners on the call today, some real agility from Sport England, we've been able to provide a solution, and today we'll share with you just how you can tap into that solution, whether you're an employer or self-employed or somebody who's had their hours reduced or left the sector altogether. It's designed purely to support your functions and in your occupations and your careers. So before I go further on, the right hand side of your screen you'll see a number of icons, and under the column you have settings, attendees, chat and polls. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, I'm chairing it. Put them in the chat and I'll do my very best to filter those questions and point them to one of our expert panelists, and we'll try and get through. We've got plenty of time towards the end to cover those questions. There's also underneath that icon a polls function, and shortly I'm going to ask Richard from Y Sports just to post a poll to see how you've been affected during the pandemic. So there'll be questions like, have you had your hours reduced, or have you had to come out the sector altogether? And whilst I introduce the panel, at the end of those introductions, I'll ask Richard to to raise that poll for us. So if I could just run through the order of the day. In the next hour or so, we're going to hear from Stuart Armstrong, who's head of workforce at Sport England. Stuart's going to explain to us why Sport England felt so strongly about supporting this initiative. Then we'll move on to Colin Huffen, who's the head of policy and regulation at CIMSPA. Colin is project managing on behalf of CIMSPA with a colleague, Katy, who we'll hear from towards the end. Colin's going to talk you through the project, the initiative itself, to explain how this works. And then we're going to hear from our partners who are working with us on this initiative, from EMD UK, the CEO, Marcus Kingwell, and our colleagues at UK Coaching. We're going to hear from the CEO, Mark Gannon. So without further ado, I'd like to firstly introduce you to Stuart Armstrong. Stuart, if I could come to you and ask you, why did Sport England feel so strongly about investing £5 million into this initiative?
Hi, Tara. Good to see you again. And hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. Why do we invest in this program? Mainly because one of the things that Sport England is aiming to do is to support people to become, or to either become physically active or to maintain a physical activity habit. And through our previous strategy towards an active nation, and with our new strategy, which is called Uniting the Movement, we are, working as much as we possibly can to support people to remove any of the barriers that are likely to take place as far as access to physical activity is concerned. And a big part of that is to ensure that those people who are marginalized or find it the most difficult to access physical activity are better able to do so. So tackling inequality is a major part of that sort of future strategy. Throughout lockdown and the pandemic, we've been working with a range of different partners across the sector, but in particular CIMSPA, EMD, UK Coaching and others, to really sort of monitor some of the challenges that are taking place. And most people will probably remember that we've made some significant investments into sort of community sport, particularly through clubs and charitable organisations and community groups. We've made a number of other investments via a Tackling Inequalities Fund, again aiming to reach people who are marginalised from physical activity. And one of the things that we recognised, and as the picture emerged, was that there were significant challenges being faced by members of our workforce. And I guess the obvious thing there is that keeping facilities open is one thing. Ensuring that people have access to programs is another. But fundamentally, if there's nobody there to provide the activity in a safe and enjoyable way, then there really isn't going to be access. And there was a recognition amongst the organisation that if we needed to do whatever we could to help those people at the workforce who are engaging people. And there was also a genuine recognition as well that the areas that seemed to be hit the most, unsurprisingly, were the areas which traditionally might have some of the most sort of limited access. And so, of course, there was a major challenge there as well, whereby areas of economic disadvantage were being hit hardest, and the recovery was going to be a major issue. We also identified through some of this work that young people in particular were potentially quite vulnerable, and in particular our sector is very reliant on young people coming into our sector to be able to take some of the roles, for example, within lifeguarding and leisure assistance, and then also involved in some of the other work that you might have in supervisory roles, or providing introductory coaching sessions and those sorts of things. And of course they're hit hardest as well. And so as we began to start to understand much more about what was happening, and we did lots of surveys and what have you, and we built up the picture, we began to understand much more about some of the challenges. And we looked into a number of different solutions, and the solutions, ranged from finding different ways to, get access to employment, or looking at, grant aid, whatever it might be. And there was lots of challenges with that, not least of which how you can utilize lottery money and different sort of limitations as far as that was concerned about, essentially subsidizing, what would otherwise be sort of government employment support schemes. But we also recognized that a number of our workforce was struggling by that, with that, and weren't able to access some of those government income support schemes. So, where did we come to? Well, we worked out pretty quickly that there was a number of different. It was a very kind of fluid and moving situation, but one of the things that we could do utilizing lottery funding was to support people with their ongoing training needs. So either training needs they would need to stay in employment or maintain their currency to be able to fulfill many of these roles, or looking into all of the other elements that would be able to support them either to get back into work or to stay in the work that or to sort of rebuild, if you like, the what they might have lost in terms of client base, etc., etc. So by working together with 3 partners who we have a very trusted relationship with, we were able to then put together a package that we feel would help with helping people either return or helping people join our industry, or at the very least helping people to maintain kind of the businesses that they've built. And so we're delighted to have all 3 of the partners working together. There's been a lot of work being done behind the scenes to get us to this point, and very excited to see the next phase of the program, and most importantly, really hope it's going to help people.
Excellent, thanks, Stuart. I just wanted to touch quickly on some questions we received in the chat. We've got a few more minutes with you. In answer to Brett Pearson's question, Brett, I think you'll hear the answer to your question throughout the webinar. If you don't, please feel free to ask me again. I've got a question here, Stuart, from Rick Rogers. He's asking why there isn't more support from Sport England for sports that aren't currently supported by an NGB. And there's been, some clear statements about widening the recognition of physical activity across the piece, but it feels like it might be restricted to funded NGBs.
I think certainly with this programme, this isn't limited just to recognised NGB activity. This would very much be open to a range of different organisations out there providing physical activity, so it certainly isn't limited. As to whether there should be more support to other activities that are not necessarily recognised by NGBs, I know there was quite a lot of support provided through the programme to organisations that weren't, for example, recognised. I know, for example, one organisation I can think of is Clubbercise, that was actually was able to get some support from us to be able to sort of maintain operation through the activity. And actually, there's a lot of different organisations who we have supported through this process who weren't originally what you like part of the network of partners that we would otherwise work with. For example, the Royal Lifesaving Society was not an organisation that we'd funded before directly, indirectly via work we'd done with CIMSPA, but not directly. And so through this programme, we were able to support them. So we are open to that, and have been open to that through the process. But at the same time, as we move forward into the new strategy, I think that's something that we're going to probably look at more and address more. So it's a bit of a watch this space when it comes to organisational support. But when it comes to this programme and workforce, we're very much about what people do and where they do it, much more so than whatever the activity is.
Brilliant, thanks, Rick. Hopefully that answered your question satisfactorily. I can see in the chat also that the largest area of shortage is swim teachers. I can tell you that's true of the whole of the UK. It's swimming teachers and lifeguards in particular, and hopefully I'll answer 2 questions in one here. Back in the summer of last year, again, another initiative supported by Sport England was the ReTrain initiative, and that was designed to, whilst we were shut, to ensure that you had a suitable number of staff when restrictions were eased and we were able to reopen. And in essence, what we did was we went out to our employers and said, where do you need the training most? And we'll pick up the tab. And again, by far the two biggest areas of take up there were lifeguarding and swimming. And we were able then to work with Swim England, the STA, and the RLSS to say, okay, look, in GM, as I can read here, there are 300 vacancies for swim teachers. Can we please run 4 or 5 courses in the next 3 weeks, and we'll pick up the tab? And that happened. So, and that will be a phase of this programme in the coming months. And I'm not going to steal Colin's thunder. He's going to explain the process during the next hour. So I think, Stuart, thank you for those answers, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you to Sport England for being so agile and finding this money when your 3 partners on this call were bleating at you quite loudly, saying this sector needs help. It really does. So I think what I'll do now is I'm going to hand over to Colin Huffen. Colin is going to talk us through the initiative itself, because you will have seen bits of it. He's going to use slides. Again, please feel free to put questions in the chat, and again, I'll do my level best to try and I won't interrupt Colin mid-flow. I would hate that, Colin. I won't do it to you. But I'll try and field as many of those questions as I can towards the end. Colin, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tara, and hello everyone. And just firstly, it's a real privilege to have the opportunity to lead this project on behalf of CIMSPA. So today I'm just going to talk you through a few slides about the programme, what it aims to do, who it's aimed at, and the benefits that people will receive as a result. So I'm going to run through some slides on that. So as Tara and Stuart have already spoken about, there is the opportunity or the potential as a result of the pandemic that we're going to lose lots of people. I'm sure you're seeing that. I can see in the chat box that's a concern for you, as it is for us. We've spent years and years and thousands of pounds getting people to a stage where they're really good at their job, and unfortunately we've lost quite a few of them. So effectively we've got to get them back into the sector, and we will do everything we can to provide them with the support that enables them to do that. So you won't be able to employers won't be able to get back up to full capacity without the people. You can't run a swimming pool without lifeguards and swimming teachers. You can't run community sport sessions without the volunteers that support them. So we've got to make sure we've got the people to enable the activity to take place and hopefully bounce back beyond pre-pandemic levels as well. As Stuart said, we've got significant concerns that those people that need the most support require the people with the highest level of qualification and the highest level of competency. And there weren't many of those in the first place. So if we've lost some of those, then those people that were really needing that support, it's not going to be there for them as well. So programme is based all around that. It's all about making sure we can give everybody the opportunity to return to the sector should they want to, and to provide them with some support to enable them to do that as well. As we've already spoken about briefly, this programme is effectively as a result of the success that we've had on 2 previous projects. That made it very easy in terms of pitching this to Sport England to say we need something to help us recover from the pandemic. So we had the Reactivate programme, which was a COVID support programme, which enabled people to really understand when they were returning to work, what sort of things that they'd be facing, how to deal with it, and it gave them increased confidence to return to work. So as you can see, over 24,000 people now have actually accessed that programme. That programme's still available. So if people do want to access that, you can visit that and see that. There's a whole host of there's a free online learning opportunity for people to do that. We'll be refreshing that as well as part of this project. So we'll be adding some new content in there and giving it a bit of a facelift. So therefore that those 24,000 people that have already done that programme will have something new to go and revisit for free as well. So it's not limited to anyone. That's a free open access thing to anyone, whether you're employed, self-employed, and whatever job role that you work in as well. And also ReTrain. So as Tara mentioned, we supported almost 16,000 lifeguards and funded that training for free. and there were 2,347 sport and exercise qualifications. A large proportion of that was swimming teachers. The aquatic industry was very forthcoming in telling us we need some support here, and what we're going to do is rally around and get together and tell you what we need. So therefore, we make your life very easy in terms of funding those qualifications. And then that's exactly what happened. I think what we've found is that you probably haven't necessarily seen the full impact of that yet, because obviously the pools were closed, so people couldn't complete the qualifications. So there are still people within that programme, those 2,347 people, finishing off those qualifications as well, doing those practical elements of that qualification. And then we supported 99 employers through that process. If any of you want to go and visit the report to see who were involved, then it was very much open to everyone. We were disappointed we didn't get 3 figures. We nearly did, but we got to 99, which was over and above what we expected to do. And again, as we'll speak about later, we intend to revisit, that's one element of this programme, so to revisit ReTrain Phase 2. So what is the project? So based on that previous investment of Reactivate and ReTrain, we've created a unique workforce retention package that will be delivered by a consortium of partners that are all on this call. And CIMSPA are providing the administration and leadership for it. What we'll be aiming to do is support up to 25,000 of the most vulnerable professionals in our sector and 25,000 volunteers return to volunteering. Numbers, if we exceed that, I'm sure we can go and talk to Stuart about whether if we do exceed that, we'll be in a fantastic position. So we want to support those 50,000 individuals getting back into employment or volunteering in our sector. So they may have left, they may have had to seek other opportunities because the pandemic has hit them hard. They may have had their hours reduced, so they might be working part-time in our sector, working part-time in another sector. How can we tip them back over to working full-time in our sector? So it's not just for employed people, it's self-employed people running micro businesses, getting them back on their feet as successful enterprises as well. And out of those 25,000 people, we understand there's probably around 5,000 people in that are the most disadvantaged of the pandemic, that have fallen through the gaps of support, that weren't able to receive that, and they will receive additional support and additional resources from us as well. And then what we want to do is make sure that we're supporting, linking the two things together, closing the loop, supporting the people to get back into employment and supporting the employers to fill their skills shortages as well. So the whole thing is a loop to get people back into the sector and to get everybody back up to full capacity post-pandemic. So we're reaching out to those 50,000 people. Who are we particularly looking for? So we're looking for people who are currently unemployed, and because they're currently employed, they're probably at risk or already at risk, already within this indices of relative poverty. We're looking for those self-employed people who've been excluded from that government support, so those people that fell through those cracks, and those people that live in or work in those lower socioeconomic group communities and have been made unemployed, and those are the people that used to work with the most vulnerable people. They'll get the greatest level of support. So there's something in this programme for everybody. And what we'll do is we'll target a greater level of support and investment in those people that meet that criteria, that need it most. And Katy, at the end of the presentation, will talk you through the eligibility criteria in more detail. Okay, I think we've covered that. I'll skip through that one very quickly. So yeah, as you know, it's been delivered by a consortium. I'm going to go through the detail of who's delivering what bits and what the benefits are from there as well. As you can see from this slide, you probably need to squint and zoom in, but it's a very complex project with lots of moving parts. I'm only really showing you this for a demonstration in terms of showing you how there are lots of bits to it, and hopefully that means that there'll be something for everybody in the programme, so nobody will be excluded from it. Everybody should be able to access something as a result of the programme. So to break that down, this complicated diagram down into more detail, there are basically 5 main categories of support. So category 1, what we're calling category 1 support, that's support for anybody in the sector. So what we found during the pandemic is that we had a fantastic response from partners and suppliers of both CIMSPA, EMD and UK coaching, who all wanted to help people. So everyone had that approach during the pandemic to say, I used to charge money for this product, I used to be able to charge money for this training. Due to the pandemic, I want to make this available for free. We had a whole host of people that came to us and said, please help us publicise these offers that we want to make. That's all been really difficult for people to find. It's been hosted on lots of different websites. It's been there's been lots of information, as I'm sure you'll have all seen. We've all been focused on actually how do we get back to work and what are the rules around that. We haven't necessarily had the opportunity to go, well, actually, I'm going to look for something else. So what we've tried to do is get rid of that distraction. So you'll see within the ReTrain website, there's a category, there's an area within that says funded resources. And within that, there are 61 free things that people can access as part of this program. And it's a really easy opportunity for them to get through there. So we're really grateful to all of our supporters and suppliers that have stepped up and provide those opportunities for free. What we'd ask you to do, either access them yourself or promote people to go and visit that. So that's the first port of call. So go and have a look if there's something available for you which can support you right now. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to apply. You just have to visit that page and then follow the directions from there. The second type of support, this is where you will need to apply for the program. So people that will apply for the program, there's 25,000 people, will get all the benefits that they would get from being a CIMSPA member without being a CIMSPA member. What we've tried to do is make the application process and form as easy as possible. What we don't want you to do is have to fill reams and reams of information in. So it's 5 or 6 questions via a web page. And if you are eligible, then you'll get all the member benefits of being a CIMSPA member. You'll get access to a community of support and learning management platform with 20 free e-learning opportunities within that as well. We're developing a aggregated jobs board. So therefore, if people are looking for extra work to increase their hours or get back into work, they don't have to go searching through multiple job vacancy websites. It will all be in one place for them as well. And we'll be matching their opportunities and wants to our employer partners as well. So we'll be reaching out to employer partners, seeing where their skills needs are, and speaking to the applicants to say, did you know there's this vacancy over here, there's this vacancy over there, and matching those two things together. So that's the second category of support. It's a whole host of free stuff that people will receive as a result. So it's learning, it's support, it's resources, it's communities of practice, it's opportunities to get back into work. As part of those learning opportunities, there'll be things like building your resilience. If you've been out of work for some time, there'll be things to support you in preparing for interviews and going to interview. There'll be things to support you in managing your finances if you're currently struggling with that as well. The whole host of things which we think will be relevant for people right now. The third category of support is specifically for sports coaches and group exercise instructors. So I'm not going to go into too much detail of that because I'm going to leave that to Mark and Marcus. But those people that are sports coaches and group exercise instructors will receive additional support from UK Coaching and EMD UK, and they'll talk you through those benefits. And then the fourth category of support is those people that we know need it the most, those people that have fallen through the gaps. What they will get is they'll get the opportunity to tell us what qualifications and support that they want. So, for example, they may currently be a lifeguard and want to be a swimming teacher, or an assistant swimming teacher and want to be a full swimming teacher, or they might be a lifeguard who wants to train as a personal trainer. Through the ReTrain program, what we'll do is we'll say, well, what do you want? What do you want to do in terms of your training? Where's your next step on your career pathway? What would enable you to gain greater hours? And they can tell us and we'll fund that training. So we'll support them with getting them on the right course in the right place for them. And we'll pick up the tab. We'll pay for that training. They may also be, for example, a personal trainer who wants to learn more about a specific client need or a group of clients. And you as an employer want to promote your teams to say, actually, we'd like you to learn more about anti-postnatal or working with children or working with people with long-term conditions, but we can't afford to fund that at the moment. But through this program, you could get that support. So you can direct your people towards that as well. There's also specific support for the volunteer sports coach workforce as well. So again, we're looking to attract a massive number of people into that. Community sport, to get back up and running, needs its volunteers. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because I'm sure Mark will expand on that shortly. But basically, there's something in it for everyone. So there should be something. You can access free things if you don't think you're eligible. If you are eligible, you get core support from CIMSPA. If you are really in need of support, then there'll be specific extra stuff for you as well from there. So yeah, 61, as I said, 61 free funded resources, all of those things. This is just through that slide in more detail. 20 pieces of learning through there. There'll be all the member benefits that you get from CIMSPA in Category 2. Category 3, those additional support offers from UK Coaching and EMD UK. And that's the end from me. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an indication of all of the different benefits that are available through the programme. And towards the end of the presentation, Katy will talk you through the eligibility criteria and how to apply. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Colin. That was very helpful. You'll be pleased to know it didn't elicit too many questions at the moment, but I'm sure people are just taking it and cogitating. We've got one question from Kelly. about letting new instructors know about the CIMSPA membership. Kelly, at the end of this webinar, my colleague Katy will be explaining how to get involved. If you feel your question isn't answered, please put it in the chat, and we will answer. No problem at all. I don't see any other specific question in relation to your presentation at the moment. So what I'd like to do now is drill down a bit and listen to the sort of specific offers in some of the categories that you just mentioned from EMD UK. Again, Group X instructors have had their hours reduced or had to take a completely different role out of the sector. I think one of the challenges last year for fitness instructors and PTs and Group X instructors who are self-employed is that some of you remember CIMSPA wrote to Rishi Sunak and said, hang on a second, the furlough scheme is paying 80%. Why are you disenfranchising self-employed people? And we got a load of signatures, including our colleagues on this call today, amongst other sectors, and we were able to at least get some parity. One of the challenges was that eligibility was subject to you having posted your year-end accounts to HMRC over a year ago, and of course our sector has got a high level of churn. We're always getting new learners and new instructors in the sector, so many people were unable to access that money, rather frustratingly, and had to leave the sector. And I'm just going to have a look at the results of the poll that we've just posted. Are you out of the sector? It doesn't look too bad at the moment, but 13% of 120,000 self-employed people is a significant chunk of people. And if you're one of those, absolutely devastating. So let's have a look at the specifics around group exercise, and then in a second or so with coaching. So I'd like to now introduce Marcus Kingwell, who's the Chief Executive of EMD UK. Marcus, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. And you're on mute, so that's okay. I could lip read, and you said pleasure, Tara. Right at the top. No. So at the top of your screen, small icon, not working. Okay. Why sports? What do you suggest, Mr. Stott? Can you help our speaker out? No, can't hear you, Marcus. I'll tell you what. Why don't we swap? Sorry, Mark. Gannon, put you on the spot while Marcus and Richard sort out this techie challenge. So yes, let's talk about coaching and the fabulous work that our partner UK Coaching is doing. So it's with huge pleasure I introduce a great friend of ours, Mark Gannon, who's the CEO of UK Coaching. Mark, what's your specific role here, and what is it UK Coaching have brought to this?
Well, first of all, Tara, thanks so much. I might just test to see, can I get a thumbs up from somebody, or a yes, you can hear me before I carry on?
I hear you, Mark. We can all.
Brilliant. The temptation to just mime was almost too much for me, so I'm glad you can hear me. So good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure as the CEO of UK Coaching to join the consortia to try and bring back all the people that were involved in coaching or delivering sport physical activity that currently aren't because of the impact of COVID. If the last 18 months has told us anything, it's told us that we need to be more active as a nation than ever before. What we do know, as colleagues has already mentioned, that those communities that have been most impacted are those that probably in the most need. And as Colin said, that's where this programme is targeted. Our role in UK Coaching, I mean, our purpose is to be here for the coach. And what we do is we provide all of the wraparound learning for coaches, swimming teachers, fitness instructors around the art of coaching. And it's very basic level. We give some minimum support and guidance in terms of what that might look like. So, for example, the package that we've got that is available to both paid and volunteer coaches includes things like safeguarding. So where somebody's been coaching already and they've done their safeguarding and it's now lapsed, the refresher course that is built in partnership with the NSPCC and the Child Protection Sport Unit, actually, that course is now available through this programme, and it's funded essentially by Sport England. So safeguarding is developed with the NSPCC is one of the learning modules, or one of the refresher modules. We've also got St John Ambulance and First Aid Refresher. So if you've already done your first aid, if you've already done your safeguarding, you can jump onto this scheme and you can access that as a funded resource. First aid also now includes sudden cardiac arrest. I'm sure everyone saw the thing with Christian Eriksen and the importance of understanding what that looks like. We've now got a digital e-learning module that was developed with Resuscitation Council UK. So a lot of the work, a lot of the products that we've got are actually developed with experts in that field. We have also, given the last 18 months, developed with Mind a module for mental health and well-being. And that's really to give the instructor, the coach, the understanding of what that might look like in terms of it manifesting itself in a participant. And just like safeguarding, if you see something untoward, what is it that you need to do? What actions you need to take to make sure that you're looking after that person? The other thing that's come with that is we've done some work with the Activity Alliance in terms of what inclusive practice looks like. So as more people that may not have been active before realise that they need to start to engage in some of the community activity, it's really important that the person leading that activity, the activator, the coach, the instructor, has a really good understanding of what that might feel to people when they're just sort of stepping back into an area that they're probably not familiar with. So that's something that's really important, making sure that we're inclusive. The other thing that you get is access to the UK Coaching Club. In the UK Coaching Club, there's a wealth of resources, literally hundreds of resources, from podcasts, courses, guides, articles, videos, webinars that really talk about not just the art of coaching, but maybe some of the audiences. So, for example, what is it like to coach children today compared with what it was 20 years ago? And if you're coaching kids, how do you organise 30 in a go? How do you make sure everybody's included? It's that sort of resource that's going to be available. So essentially the package is two things. It's the essential stuff to get you back, the refresher stuff. It's some new stuff that allows you to come back into the environment we're coming back into now. And then there's a wealth of stuff that you can explore through the search engine to understand, okay, well, what else do I need to know? So you can have a little dig around yourselves. But it's been an absolute privilege to work with both CIMSPA, EMD UK and Sport England to bring something back together to encourage people back to delivering sport and physical activity, particularly in those areas that need it most. And that's be done. Thanks,
Mark. I have a question for you, which I know you have the answer to. I think these for the audience. The offer that you pulled together and the massive resources you've got, I mean, that wasn't just plucked out of thin air, was it? You have an evidence base because you surveyed hundreds of thousands of people. Could you tell us a bit more about why you arrived at these offers and how you arrived at them?
Yeah, we actually did a bit of a survey during COVID, and we were asking particularly volunteer coaches, what is it that you would need to get back onto the coaching journey, the coaching train? And a lot of people talked about things that had lapsed. So safeguarding, for example, lapses every 3 years, and people were saying, well, I'm struggling to get to a face-to-face course for safeguarding. Well, the good news is that safeguarding can be done in an online classroom. So using the digital platform that we've got, we worked with the NSPC. So it's still a face-to-face course, but it's actually online. So we've actually been offering safeguarding the full course online, that we can do an online classroom, and then the refresher is also digital. So that's been quite a shift in the way that we do things. It means that you don't have to drive 40 minutes to a course. You don't have to get yourself prepared and drive back. So we really try to take the practical advice of coaches in lockdown and what would help them get back. I think there's probably a longer term thing here as well, about because, you know, some of them have been so challenged, particularly those in communities of need, that maybe they're not going to come back, and we might want to encourage people to start going forward. But for right now, there is a wealth of knowledge and expertise out there, particularly those that work with communities in need, and we really want to encourage those guys sort of back to the community.
Great, thanks, Mark. The point I'm making to the audience is that all three organisations have not created a complex system based on what we think We've been asking questions, we've been running polls, we've been meeting with you. So we're very much leading by listening here. And I'm grateful to Mark to back that up. I'm interested to hear from the audience, actually, because there's a bit of a dichotomy here, which is that we have people leaving the sector who wish to remain in it, and yet we have this staff shortage. And I'd love to read any comments that people have got to see if we can understand better why that is. So we are a predominantly young sector. Myself, present company included, excluded, I'm not sure. But the fact that there is it's the highest youth unemployment this country has seen in decades, and we have all these vacancies, currently around about 60,000 vacancies, and yet we're not filling them. So I'd be very interested to hear from the audience as to why they think that is. What we can't do is we can't pick jobs out of the air. What we can do, which is what you're hearing in the offer, is ensure that when somebody applies for a job, of which there are tens of thousands, that they have all the tools, they're as up to date and as qualified as possible to give them the very best chance to just go straight back into work, or to increase their hours, or to increase their profile. And again, there's another initiative running alongside this, which, if you're self-employed and you've changed your delivery to perhaps online or hybrid, as I think, I'm seeing more and more of that. People do lots of stuff online now. They want to get back into a studio or to meet with their PT, in the local park. The digital marketing hub, if you haven't seen it, if you're self-employed or a sole trader and you wanted to increase your profile, I can't tell you how fantastic the content, and that's entirely free to anybody in our sector. If you want to know more about how to increase your reach and profile and get more customers, clients and participants, it's just an awesome resource. I'm sure one of my colleagues will just drop into the chat how you access that shortly. I can see that Mark is answering a couple of the questions. So Rick, you asked a very specific question, and I think Mark is answering directly. Just looking at a couple of others here. Brett, the links to Safeguard and First Aid provided by UK Coaching. Once individuals have registered, so the system has a filter of eligibility. Then what we'll do is we'll take people into those categories that I alluded to, that Colin alluded to earlier. So all of the offering that we're talking about today will suddenly become available to those who've met the eligibility criteria. So if you just hang on in there, that's the next stage of the work. This is us today announcing the initiative. So hopefully, Brett, that answers your question. So I've had a text message from the brilliant Richard Stock to tell me that Marcus is fully mic'd up now. Marcus, if I could just ask you the same question that we asked Mark. What is the specific offer that EMD has pulled together, and why?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Tara. Apologies for the delay earlier on the audio front. For those that don't know, EMD UK is the national governing body for group exercise. And we've joined this consortium because there's about 100,000 group exercise instructors out there in the UK have all been affected in different ways by the pandemic. Many have been able to go online, but they've found that a struggle to make the same kind of income that they would have done face to face. Others have had to stop working altogether. Some that have been employed have been previously employed have been laid off, and those who are self-employed have found themselves at the back of the queue for work. So we've been surveying instructors the entire time of the pandemic to find out exactly what kind of support and help they need. And we've done our best to put a package together which will help them through this recovery stage to get them back on their feet. So the first thing is the Category 1 support that Colin outlined earlier on, which is free to anybody that registers on this scheme. You can just go in there and help yourself really to the resources that are out there. So from EMD UK, the first thing is 12 webinars pre-recorded webinars that we ran over the last few months are now available on YouTube to look at, covering topics from engaging with social media, improving your self-confidence, delivering the new This Girl Can classes training, how to make money from your online classes, and how to make sure your in-person classes are back in the right shape and format. So a dozen webinars there to look at. We've also got a resource pack of templates. That's risk assessment templates for indoors, outdoors and online, and the physical activity readiness questionnaire, straight for you to use directly. We've got an information pack on taking your classes online, bearing in mind not everyone's been able to take that first step, even during the pandemic. And then I'm looking at a hybrid approach. And finally, a self-assessment to show to your participants that your classes are safe and fit to be used in a confident manner by group exercise participants, because you've got the necessary precautions in place, despite the legal requirement for precautions having been lifted on 19th of July. Very many participants are still nervous about exercising in enclosed spaces, and this is a way to show your participants that you're safe to do so. Now, with the next level of support we're able to give is some more detailed guidance on promoting your business goals, collecting the data from participants, how to work in self-employment, particularly relevant if someone was previously employed and perhaps were laid off, or was on furlough and has now just finished furlough and is about to lose their job, how to become self-employed and set up, which tens of thousands of group exercise instructors do currently. And then when we get through to category 3, which remember is the specific support for different classes of people working in the sport and physical activity sector, if you like. In this area, we've got bundles of packages, and you can pick one of these 4. The first is a membership of the EMD UK, which lasts a year and will provide you with full insurance cover for that period of time. So you're straight up ready to go in terms of insurance. If you're already insured and you don't need that, you may need to get PPL credits. Now, these are the licenses which allow you to use original artist music for your face-to-face classes, and you need to use these credits in order to legitimately use that kind of music. So we can give you a package of credits for free. You can also register your classes on Class Finder, which is a free listing service and search engine specifically for group exercise, catering for 400 different styles across England. You can do that anyway, but what we're giving you is the bookings package for a number of months free of charge. Now, the bookings package means that any participants that find your class on Class Finder can then click to book a place on specific classes and pay the instructor, which is a huge headache that's been lifted, and a great way of growing the business of that individual instructor. So that will be funded for a number of months for people who get through to category 3. And finally, there's money off a range of training courses, including the level 2 dance fitness qualification, the level 2 group training to music. We have mental health awareness, pre and postnatal qualification, education and training, and the level 3 assessing. And in addition, the brand new This Girl Can classes training, which is the CPD that allows you then to deliver this new class that's aimed at women who have been previously inactive. So with the use of EMD UK's bursary and the discount through ReTrain to retain, that'll bring the price down to about £50 per head, which is a substantial reduction. But it won't end there. What we're looking to do is to keep learning as this scheme rolls out and see what feedback we're getting, what new services people want, and then to build those into the program so that actually it's enhanced all the time. And the last thing I would say is for group exercise instructors to not just look at what their national governing body provides within this R2R program. Also have a look at everything that's on offer from CIMSPA and from UK Coaching, because there's a wealth of stuff there that we don't cover, but you can still access to for nothing on the category 1 support and category 2 for CIMSPA. So look at that as well. Now, I'm aware that many of the people on this call today are from employers, from leisure operators, from gyms, from partners like Active Partnerships. and so on. And you're probably thinking, well, what do you need to do to be part of this? Well, the first thing is to get the news out there. And for people that you know who are in group exercise or were previously in it, please get this message out. This might be staff you've had to lay off or let go or not renew contracts of self-employed people. Please get this out because this will help them. Also, if you're thinking of doing a particular project where you want to reach, in particular, women in large numbers, group exercise is a great mechanism for doing that, and you will need a workforce with the appropriate skills, training and qualifications. And here's a way to bring back perhaps some of that workforce, give them the piece that they're missing, and help you run that particular program. So it's open now for registration. The assessment process will follow in the next few weeks, and that will lead people on to enable to access the Category 3 support. So I hope that all makes sense. And I think it's now probably hand back to Tara.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. That was really informative. Marcus, I've got a question for you. So back in the day, like 1800 years ago, when I was a Group X instructor, right up until recently, the whole area of licensing is really complicated. You have to have PPL, PRS. Now you have to have, you have to buy per song or songwriter or something like that. And you and I and our colleagues in the sector were able to work with PRS and PPL to get a sync license included in the whole license during the pandemic, which was extraordinarily helpful. I mean, it was just so much easier for us all, wasn't it? Now that's since been lifted. What are we doing about that to try and demystify licensing and to try and uncomplicate a very, very complex system?
It is, you're right, Tara. It's a very complicated world with numerous licenses required at any one time. And it was a massive blow when the music publishers decided not to renew what was known as the LOML and sync licenses. They're two components that allowed you to use original artist music online. So it's having music to your instructional videos. That disappeared at the end of June. Since then, we've been working hard with CIMSPA, Sport England, DCMS, UK Active, Les Mills, FitPro, anyone that can work together to gather lots of evidence about the demand for this, because we now know that something like 60% of instructors will continue to do an online fitness class, and they want to use original artist music in those classes. So we do have some progress. We've been in dialogue with PRS for Music and MCPS, and other of the authorising organisations who are the gateway to the music publishers, and they're keen to find a solution. And we've also asked, this whole area needs sorting out because it's too hard. It's baffling for newcomers in. It's baffling for experienced people. So I think the dialogue's started on that one. It's going to take a while, but we're determined to see it through. If anybody out there is confused about what to do, have a look on our website. We have got information there about music licensing, or drop us an email at info@emduk.org, and we'll do our best to help. But we do now have a dialogue which has started, which is positive.
Thanks, Marcus. And just to let everybody know that the organisations that Marcus mentioned there, we all put our signatures to a letter, a fairly stern and straight to the point letter to these organisations saying that this is disenfranchising this sector, and at a time where people need to be more active. There is actually a survey, and what's helping open the door to this much needed dialogue between the organisations is that we're able to show the results of this survey to those organisations who are quite shocked, frankly, to see just how tricky it's become for you guys. Thank you, Rick, for putting in that helpful website there. I've never come across that, so I'll be looking at that shortly. I think, Marcus, I don't know if any of your colleagues are on the call today, but it would be really handy if we can just stick the link into the survey, because I think it's a good run. The more evidence we've got to say, please simplify this process, the better. And as I said, so far the survey results have yielded some really, really positive dialogue with those organisations sort of putting their hands up and said, okay, we just need to, you know, unclunk this, which is great. Okay, Marcus, that's very helpful and very informative. Thank you. Just a couple of questions in the chat, or some comments on the chat. Paul, Carol, you're talking about the digital online refreshers. You make a really good point. So just to clarify, the digital marketing hub that we've launched is just about marketing. So if I'm a self-employed instructor or coach and I want to increase my profile and reach, that's teaching me, you know, stuff that we don't understand. I don't understand what SEO is. I don't know which platforms work better than others for my business. So that's simply what it is, as opposed to teaching me how to teach online. You'll not get an argument from me. Face-to-face is better all day long. And interestingly, Les Mills issued, they've just completed a big survey, not just Group X, by the way, you know, for the whole sector, and how it impacted on people's participation and activity levels during COVID. And overwhelmingly, people want to get back on a face-to-face basis. So, yeah, Paul, I could not agree with you more. But yeah, please don't misunderstand what the Digital Marketing Hub is aiming to do. I saw a couple of, I saw something from Alison Lee about pay being reduced. Now that's news to me. I don't like the sound of that. But you're quite right. I mean, that would be a driver, wouldn't it, to leave the sector? You might have had your hours increased, but if your hourly rate's been reduced, that's counterproductive and not particularly helpful. There's another question here around from Vladimir. I can't find it. Lack of full-time job since 0 hours are adopted as standard. Yeah. You're quite right, but just to let you know, Vladimir, if you're not already aware, the law changed last year around 0 hours, and it was based on a white paper put to government, and it was rooted actually in Uber and other organisations like that, where people on 0 hours were not in receipt of the same sort of benefits or rights that somebody who was employed was. So there are 3 categories now legally in terms of employment status, and if you'd like to know more about that and how it protects you, I'm more than happy to send you some information about it. I don't know if Colin or Katy, you're about to speak, so don't get distracted by this, but we posted some information on this. It was written by an HR specialist to support the self-employed. So understand the difference between self-employed, employed, and being classified as a worker. And it's the third one that is the significant change in law, and it does protect you. So I'll see if I can get it, see if I can find it and post it while Katy's presenting, or perhaps Colin can find it for me. It is on our website, Vladimir, if you want to look for it, although I gather we've got problems with our security certificate today. John, in answer to your question, in terms of seated classes, I think Marcus alluded to this. There are 400 delivery styles where there's additional learning and support from EMD. I'm pretty certain that will be included. And equally, whilst EMD and UK Coaching are providing services, when it comes to training the CPD, we've got over 200 brilliant training providers that we will tap into to support this project and initiative as well. And I can tell you categorically, there is a lot of that there. There's Living More, the seated stuff, there's the Dementia UK classes, we have additional information on mine. So it's not limited to Group X as we know it, it's the whole plethora availability. I hope that answered your question, John. Please feel free to come back to me if it didn't. Right, okay, listen, we're hurtling towards a decent finish time. Please keep your questions coming in because we've got about 15 minutes at the end, if not longer. You're probably thinking, right, well, how do I get get involved in this. So Katy's going to, I'm going to hand over to Katy Adamson, who's my colleague at CIMSPA, who has some slides just to take you through some next steps. Don't worry if you miss anything. We will post Katy's slides into the file underneath the video icon. Katy, over to you, lovely.
Thank you. Just waiting for my slides to share. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to cover basically who's eligible for the programme and how you can get involved. So as you'll see on the screen here, there are 5-6 different ways that you could potentially get involved in this. I think Colin mentioned earlier, but there is something for everybody involved in this programme. So even if you don't categorise for the further levels of benefits, there is funded resources on the microsite that you're able to access just by linking onto that page. We'll pop that into the chat later on as well, so you can have direct access to that if you did want to apply after the webinar. So category 2, that's for the detrimentally affected by the pandemic, and they will receive the core programme benefits that CIMSPA are providing. Category 3, again mentioned previously, this will have support for UKC and EMD. Depending on what job role you have will depend on where the site filters you to. And again, later on, I'll show you when you go through to apply, it will filter you down into different sections. So there's 4 different categories of sort of benefits that you could potentially have access to. And then we've also got volunteers that will be serviced by UKC in this programme as well. Later on as well, I'm going to talk about ReTrain phase 2. So you may have heard, as mentioned previously from Colin, about ReTrain phase 1 will be involved in that, and we're going to be relaunching that side of the programme as well in a couple of weeks' time. Okay, so here we go into a little bit more about eligibility. So like I said, category 1, that's for anybody to access. So if you go onto the website link, you'll be able to access at the top, it says funded resources. There's lots of resources on there that you'll be able to access straight away. You don't need to fill out any application form. You can have initial access to them. Category 2, so here again, you must live in England for these categories to be able to access these benefits. You must be or have been paid and professional in the workforce. You must be in an eligible job role, and there's a list of job roles on the website that you'll see that you can select from. And you must either be unemployed or have had your working hours restricted due to the COVID pandemic. And this is a lot of the categories have that clause in them. So you either have to have been unemployed from obviously the COVID pandemic or have had your working hours restricted. If you haven't, again, you can refer back to those free funded resources that we've put on for offer for everybody. Category 3, so this is going to support the sports coaches and group exercise coaches. And again, you must live in England for this. The same eligibility category applies for this. You must have been affected by the COVID pandemic in some way or had your hours reduced. And then category 4, I'm going to speak into a little bit more detail a bit about this further down the slides. But again, must be in professional workforce, must be in an eligible job role, and you must have had your hours reduced, or you must have lost work due to the pandemic. Again, and you must be in your low seg area. So this is the highest support package for those, like Colin said earlier, that need it the most. And then again, UKC, they're going to be sourcing the volunteer benefits. And as you'll see on the website, what the website does is it initially asks you if you're a volunteer or if you're a paid workforce. So if you click on volunteer, it will take you straight to UKC, and they will get the benefits for you through there. If you're a paid person within the workforce, we'll then filter you through an application form. So quickly, if I talk about ReTrain, so you may have been involved in the first phase of ReTrain. This is some of the eligibility for that programme. And I'll go into a little bit more detail again about phase 2 that's going to be launching in a couple of weeks' time. So the eligibility for businesses for this is that you must be in England. Your business must have been detrimentally distributed by COVID-19 pandemic. Now this, we haven't set a time span on this, but this spans across all of the pandemic. If you face difficulties, you can apply and receive support through this. You must complete an organisational training needs analysis, and this is going to be supported by our CIMSPA partnerships team. So what we wanted to do is, like Tara said earlier, we really want to lead by listening, and we want to find out what actually it is that you guys need help with, what you need support on in terms of CPD or courses, qualifications. We don't want to supply you that's something you don't need. So our partnership team will support you on this. You must not be in receipt of any funding from Local Skills Accelerator Pilot, and that's a different project that we've got running at the moment. So we just need to categorise that when you apply for the project. The programme details. So it's kind of different to phase one. This focuses on existing workforce. I think Colin might have mentioned earlier, but it is for potential like swim teachers who might need update on their swim qualifications, lifeguards who may need renewal of their lifeguard qualification, or this could be potentially businesses or employers that we've already worked with in the past on ReTrain phase one. If that is the case, we're going to be in contact with those people in the next couple of weeks to redo those training needs analysis and see what is needed for sort of the future. If you do want to get involved, there's going to be help supported for your businesses as well. You just need to make sure you categorise for this eligibility here on the left-hand side. So to apply, you'll see the link here. I'll make sure we pop it into the chat. But all you need to do is click on this ReTrain CIMSPA link. It will then take you to our microsite that we've developed. There will be a list of eligibility on there that you can double check. There will be an apply now form. Again, if you're a volunteer, this will take you through to UKC site and they will provide you with their benefits through them. If you are not, then you will go through the paid system and be receiving your benefits very, very soon from CIMSPA and our consortia partners. I think that's everything. If I've got any questions, I can answer them now from the chat.
Yeah, thanks. Not masses of questions here. There are some very helpful, actually, for the networking here, some very helpful links to each other in the chat, but by and large, nothing around this particular bit in terms of accessing.
I think Colin had a link here.
I'm just looking back. John O'Callaghan, if you're the John O'Callaghan I know, do drop me a line, John, because I think I can help with the seated class workforce. I think I can put you in contact with somebody, one of our training providers, who's also a deliverer, who I think can help you out very, very quickly. If you're not the John O'Callaghan I know, if you wouldn't mind sharing your email address with me privately, I'll reach out to you, see if I can help. Yes, so hopefully everybody, you get the gist of how to apply. So we've gone through the eligibility phase pretty much for the last month, just under a month, and we're now, this is a year-long project. Sport England is supporting this until the summer of next year. So yeah, so there are different phases, and the phase 2 of ReTrain, I'm just answering one of the questions earlier on at the beginning. Who was that from? Andy. Andy, that's when you can access phase 2 of the ReTrain. So that's probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, but it rather than just specifically just chucking money at courses, we'd like to understand the sort of broader training needs that you can identify. We're happy to work with you on that, so that we are getting more bang for our buck. Basically, we're enabling and empowering you to get back up and running normally. Interested in the poll, sites that have had their services reduced in this poll is around 81%. In the large poll that we ran last month, it was 86%. So, you know, pretty much trending equally. So that's an essential part of this project, is supporting employers as well as individuals. So I'm just looking now at, there don't seem to be any more questions. What I am going to do is I'm going to give it another minute or so to see if anybody does have a burning question. Alison has sent me a private message. We'll come to that shortly. You'll see for Group X instructors in particular, or anybody who have access to the PRS, PPL complex system, Marcus has now put the link to the survey in the chat. If you are one of those instructors, please put it in. I mean, you know, if it's tough, tell us it's tough, so we can just stick that in front of PRS and ask them to sort it out. Yes, Paula, are there any plans to connect or signpost the people who retrain and who want to get back into sector directly with operators so we can get people employed as that? Yes. So there are two things we can do there. The first one is that I think Colin mentioned earlier that we're looking to work with all recruitment agencies and job vacancy type people, leisure ops, leisure jobs, etc., to create an aggregated jobs board so that people can see where the vacancies are. But we also have, as does Marcus and Mark, we have fantastic direct relationships with employers. So we're going to be working with employers saying, tell us where you have the vacancy so we can stick these on the jobs board, and then try and connect a number of people that are registered, that are eligible through ReTrain to Retain to those employers. That's very much at the heart of what we're doing, Paula. So thank you for that excellent question. So I'll just give you a couple more minutes to conjure up any questions. Also, for those of you who didn't see the link earlier, you can see in the chat now that Colin has added the link to ReTrain. For those of you who would like to share it, if you're not already registered, or you'd like to share it with your staff or colleagues or peers or anybody you think who might benefit from this initiative, please feel free to. No, Kelly, Kelly Illingworth has asked the question, will we be able to apply as an organisation for ReTrain funding and current applications just for individuals? Don't worry about your internet. I have covered it. I'm happy to say it again. Yes, organisations can seek support. So you identify the training that you need for your current workforce or for those that vacancies. And again, it's similar to ReTrain phase 1. We will fund on demand, in essence, but we're particularly focusing on areas of the country that have the greatest need. So in essence, yes. I don't see any further questions. I'm just looking at the time. This is billed as a 2:30 finish, but we did plan for a 2:15 as we started bang on time, and there were no massive questions. So I think the questions have dried up. Thank you for completing the polls. I'm very grateful. Thank you for your sharing with each other links and advice. That's good to see that this is how this sector survives, is by sharing practice and collaborating. I hope you found the webinar helpful. If you click on the website that Colin's put in there, the ReTrain, it will be constantly updated. So as Marcus mentioned earlier, we're going to, this is quite a formal process in terms of we've got categories, but we will keep coming back to the sector and say, does it need to change? Do we need to pivot? So it's quite an iterative process as well. So we really, really need to understand where your greatest needs are. I'd just like to say thank you to the speakers today, to Colin Huffen, to Katy, Adamson, Marcus, Kingwell and Mark Gannon. Thank you for your time. I know you're busy people, but and thank you also for your organisation's support of this brilliant initiative. I will say thank you to Stuart, but he's gone, so I'll send him a text. And thank you all for joining. I hope you found it useful. Please feel free to put any questions in this chat or to contact info@cimspa.co.uk if you don't feel you've had your questions answered, or you think about something when you sleep on it tonight. We're more than happy to get back to you. So without further ado, thank you all very much for your time. Thank you to the speakers. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch soon.